Let me say this as clearly as possible. Something just broke, and it wasn't Iran. It was Donald Trump's image of control. One moment, he's standing there sounding like a conqueror, declaring Iran crushed, finished, wiped off the board. The next moment, he's turning around and basically asking the world, hey, you guys might want to step in and help handle the Strait of Hormuz. Think about that shift for a second. That's not strength, that's not dominance. That's a crack wide open for everyone to see. Because the Strait of Hormuz isn't just some random stretch of water, it's the lifeline of the global economy. Oil flows through it, shipping flows through it, and when that artery tightens, everything feels it. Gas prices, groceries, airline tickets, your monthly bills. So when a leader goes from, we already won, to, we need help, that's not just a messaging slip. That's a credibility collapse happening in real time. And here's the uncomfortable question nobody in Washington wants to answer right now. If Trump truly had control of the situation, why did his tone flip so fast? Why go from victory lap to backup call? That's not strategy. That's improvisation under pressure. And in geopolitics, when your words don't match reality, the world notices instantly. Now hold on to this thought because it's about to get even more serious. When allies hear that kind of contradiction, they don't just shrug it off. They start asking themselves a dangerous question. Is this someone we can rely on or someone we need to protect ourselves from? And once that question enters the room, everything changes. Now let's rewind, because what you just saw didn't come out of nowhere. This didn't start with the Strait of Hormuz. This started months ago, maybe even years, with a pattern that just kept repeating itself. Donald Trump didn't just pressure allies, he humiliated them. He slapped tariffs on partners, mocked NATO like it was some kind of protection racket, and treated longtime allies like they were disposable tools you can kick around one day and call for help the next. And here's the brutal truth. That kind of behavior has consequences. Think of it like this. If you had a business partner who insulted your customers, threatened your suppliers, and then suddenly called you in the middle of a crisis, begging for backup, how seriously would you take that call? That's exactly where America's allies are right now. They're not rushing in. They're hesitating. They're calculating. Because trust, once burned, isn't something you can just demand back on command. And while Trump was out there performing outrage, playing to cameras, acting like diplomacy was just another TV segment, other countries were doing something much quieter and much smarter. They were preparing. Europe started hedging. Gulf states started hedging. Even global media and financial systems started hedging. They were building Plan B, Plan C, even Plan D, just in case Washington became too unpredictable to rely on. Here's the part that should really make you stop and think. Power isn't just about having the biggest military. It's about being the one everyone trusts to lead. And right now, that trust, it's not just weakening, it's being drained piece by piece by the very man demanding loyalty. So when Trump expected the old playbook, America calls, and everyone lines up, he ran straight into reality. Because the world doesn't run on fear alone, it runs on confidence, stability, and trust. And if those are gone, then what exactly is left? Now here's where everything becomes impossible to ignore. Because we're not talking about opinions anymore, we're talking about hard receipts, evidence, contradictions you can't spin away, no matter how loud you shout. Start with receipt number 1, Trump's own words. First, he suggests that multiple countries, especially those dependent on the Strait of Hormuz, would be sending warships alongside the United States to secure the passage. Sounds strong, right? Sounds like a coalition already in motion. But then, almost immediately, the tone flips. Suddenly it's, those countries should take care of it and the United States will help a lot. Do you see it? That's not leadership. That's outsourcing after the fact. He claimed victory first and then quietly admitted he needs others to carry the burden. And in geopolitics, timing is everything. If you truly have control, you don't declare the war won and then ask for backup. That's not a strategy. That's a public slip. It tells adversaries there might be weakness behind the curtain. It tells allies the plan might be thinner than advertised. And it tells markets that risk is rising faster than the slogans can cover. Now, receipt number 2, and this one hits even harder. When reports started circulating that countries like France were ready to step in, the response was immediate and cold. French officials pushed back publicly, making it clear their military posture remained defensive. Translation: not our mission, not on your terms. And understand this, alliances don't usually contradict each other out in the open unless they want distance. That wasn't confusion, that was a message. And then comes receipt number 3, the media war. As the narrative started slipping, Trump didn't tighten the strategy. He attacked the coverage. Major outlets were accused of distortion, of lying, of being the problem. Allies like FCC Chair Brendan Carr echoed language about regulation, public interest, and broadcast responsibility. But let's be honest about what that sounds like in plain English. Tell the story our way or face consequences. Because here's the reality: no one can hide from when a leader starts fighting the cameras instead of fixing the message. That's not confidence, that's control slipping. And the more pressure applied to the media, the more people start looking elsewhere for answers. So ask yourself this: if everything was truly under control, why does it look like everything needs to be controlled? Now step back for a second, because this is where the story stops being about one man and starts being about the entire world adjusting in real time. While Trump is getting louder, more aggressive, more forceful in his tone, everyone else is doing the exact opposite. They're getting quieter, more cautious, more strategic. And that contrast, that's where the real shift is happening. European governments aren't rushing in, they're limiting exposure. Gulf states aren't blindly aligning, they're exploring de-escalation, protecting their own interests. Corporations are rerouting supply chains. Insurance companies are recalculating risk. Media platforms are evolving outside traditional control structures. Nobody is charging into the chaos. They're building distance from it. And that right there is the difference between raw power and real strategy. Trump still treats power like a blunt weapon. Louder threats, bigger statements, more pressure. But the rest of the world, they're playing a different game. They're building backup systems, alternative routes, parallel alliances. They're quietly preparing for a future where Washington is no longer the only center of gravity. Let that sink in, because this isn't about whether America is still strong. It is. Militarily, economically, it's still a giant. But strength without trust, that's where things start to fracture. And right now, countries aren't asking, how do we follow? They're asking, how do we protect ourselves, just in case? And here's why this matters to you directly. This isn't some distant geopolitical chess match. If the Strait of Hormuz tightens even slightly, the shockwaves hit everywhere. Shipping costs go up, insurance premiums spike. That feeds into product prices, energy bills, airline tickets, everything. This is how a political miscalculation turns into a financial hit in your daily life. So while Trump is focused on projecting dominance, the rest of the system is quietly rewriting the rules. Not with headlines, not with speeches, but with decisions. Real structural decisions that don't just disappear when the news cycle moves on. And once those decisions are made, they rarely get reversed. So where does this go from here? Because make no mistake, the next move doesn't just belong to Trump, it belongs to the entire system reacting to him. And right now, there are 3 paths unfolding, whether anyone in Washington admits it or not. First, the calm it down scenario. Back channels open, tensions ease, everyone claims victory. Trump says he forced allies to step up. Allies say they preserve stability. Markets breathe again. On the surface, it looks like a reset. But don't be fooled. Once trust cracks, it doesn't magically rebuild overnight. The damage stays under the surface, waiting for the next shock. Second, the realignment scenario, and this one is already in motion. Countries start learning from each other, they hedge more, diversify more, rely less on a single power center. The United States is still massive, still dominant in many ways, but no longer the automatic axis of every decision. The world doesn't break away overnight. It slowly builds around. And then there's the third path, the one nobody wants to say out loud. Escalation, more pressure, more threats, more unpredictable moves. That's how systems don't just bend, they fracture. Not in one dramatic collapse, but through repeated shocks that teach every player the same lesson: don't put all your trust in one place. And that brings us to the bottom line. This wasn't just a bad week or a messaging mistake or a temporary misstep. This was a reveal, a moment where the limits of Trump's approach were exposed in front of the entire world. Because strength isn't just about who can shout the loudest or hit the hardest, it's about who others choose to stand with when it matters most. So let me leave you with this. Did Trump expose weakness in America's allies, or did he expose the limits of his own strategy? Are these countries being disloyal, or are they simply protecting themselves from unpredictability? And if the world is already building workarounds, what does that say about the future of American leadership? Drop your answer below, because this story isn't slowing down, it's accelerating, and the next chapter, it's coming faster than anyone expects.